We have looked at the beginning of the story of Job, and it's important that we realize that the book is written in such a way that we know, we are privileged to know the reason behind Job's attacks and sickness and losses. Normally, nobody knows all these things. People don't know. All of a sudden, they just start suffering, they are plunged into distress, loss. But in that case, God has made it possible for us to know the basic reason why Job was tested. And we know that it was not his fault, it was not a punishment for his sin, it was not because he had abandoned God. There was nothing of the sort. It was a test that Satan asked permission for. And so we have to remember that as we continue now looking at the interventions from Job's friends. And the first one is Eliphaz. And basically he tries various angles to talk. After keeping quiet for quite a long while, he said, well, can you allow us to talk? After all, we have taken everything into account, but we feel like we absolutely need to say something. And the first thing he said is, well, it's kind of funny that you have been advising others, you have been counseling others, you have been a leader in the church, and now it's your turn to suffer, and you seem to struggle to cope with the situation. And this remark is not really helpful. We know that. Then he tries and said, well, since you have been pious, you have been praying, this should have given you confidence. So, after all, maybe there is no need for us to say anything, but, you should be confident. And logically from there, then he starts saying, actually, you cannot say you are righteous. No one can say he is righteous. And remember, that was before Jesus died and rose to give us his righteousness. Now we are the righteousness of God, but of course it was not the case at that time. And so Eliphaz said, well, no one is righteous, so anyway, we should expect God to treat us that way. And then he said, maybe if I were you, I could apply to God and plead my cause. After all, he cares. Why not pray? But of course, Job had already prayed at that point. So it was not really a helpful comment either. And then the last part of Eliphaz's first talk is, well, this is God's discipline, so you have to accept it. He will rescue you eventually, so just accept it. Now imagine you are receiving these comments. They sound all right. They sound good in their own details, but none of it was really helpful to Job. And then later on in the book, Eliphaz explains, well, your mouth condemns you. You don't show wisdom in your talk. And why should you vent your rage? You don't talk like that to God. You don't open your mouth and say anything. And so he's actually blaming the talks from Job, when Job was saying, oh, maybe I should not have been born, it would be better for me. And Job really opened up and said things to God, but in front of his friends. And the other one said, oh, you don't talk like that. Just keep quiet if you have nothing to say. And then from there on, then he concludes, after all, you are wicked. Yes, you seem to be all right, but I'm sure you maltreated the poor, the needy, the widow. That's the reason you suffer. And submit to God, make peace with Him, and prosperity will be back to you. So actually, you can see a progression, and gradually the friend comes to the conclusion that there is no way out. Job must be guilty, and that is why God punished him. And this tells us that knowing what we know from the beginning of the book of Job, there is a gap between what is really happening and what the friend concludes. And remember, that is a close friend. And so it is a lesson for us. That speech, those speeches from Eliphaz are warning us that we should not cast stones to those that are afflicted and conclude speedily that they must be at fault, that there is no way out. And I'm sure that some of the people that do that would even add insult to injury by quoting the Bible over it. And so let us be humble and support the others in prayer, and know that many times we don't understand. And when we don't know, we should just keep quiet and pray and show love, and that will be more helpful. And we're going to see the other speeches later on and learn that in the end, all these people were deemed wrong.